settling in. We got a few front row seats here. We're going to get started right now. I'll sit in the front row when I'm done, I promise. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this lunchtime conversation. The Sacramento Press Club presents. My name is Nick Meller. I'm a working journalist in Sacramento with the NPR member station CapRadio, and I'm also vice president of the Press Club. A couple thank yous before we start. I want to thank the team at Cal Matters, Dave, Neil, and the team for hosting us today in their great new facility. This is one of our first events here. We're excited to try it out, and we're eager to come back. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, the Dewey Square Group. They are making this event possible, and we are really grateful for your sponsorship. That also makes possible our scholarship program. The Press Club's mission is to provide scholarships to student and aspiring journalists. So thank you so much for doing that. The event today, yeah, it's a cool thing. The event today is Meet the Rookies, and I think that title is something we've done often in the past, going on maybe a decade. It's an affectionate title. It's not totally accurate, right? Because everyone on this panel today is not a rookie to the world of California politics, policy, and lawmaking. And in this particular instance, not even a rookie to being a legislator at the state capitol. A little more on that soon. But we're going to keep the name because, again, it's affectionate and we like it. I'm going to introduce the panel real quick. At the far end, Assemblymember Josh Hoover, Republican from Folsom. Thanks for coming today. Is Assemblywoman Blanca Pacheco, a Democrat from Downey. Assemblywoman Esmerelda Soria, a Democrat from Merced. Rick Zbur, Democrat from Los Angeles. Assemblywoman, State Senator Angelique Ashby from right here in Sacramento. State Senator Roger Niello, also from Sacramento. The format, we have two great moderators who are going to ask questions for the first 30 minutes or so. Then we're going to flip the record and let this audience ask some questions. So, moderating today, Nicole Nixon with CapRadio, the NPR member station. Ashley Zavala with KCRA. And I'm going to pass it off to Ashley. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, so we want to get started with, if you could just briefly describe, please briefly, we love you, but.
Why are you looking at Roger when you say that?
If you could briefly describe how you got into politics and into the position you are now. I mean, given that all of you have experience, as Nick said, but yes, we'll start with you, Senator Niello.
How I got into politics, and you want me to be brief.
Yes,
So I'm an accountant by training and a car dealer by vocation and politician by avocation. I kind of fell into it, involved in a lot of local issues through the local Metro Chamber of Commerce. My friend Dave Cox was on the Board of Supervisors running for the Assembly. He was going to win. He and I talked about who should succeed him, and we decided it should be me. And I won that election, and the rest is history.
I ran for office. That's how I got here. But why did I decide to run for office, which is probably the root of the question? I just got really involved in my community. I didn't really know any elected officials. I didn't set out to be an elected official. I just really cared about my neighborhood and started to get involved there. And ultimately, that landed me on the Sacramento City Council. And following that, just ended up in the state Senate, made friends with people like Dr. Pan and Daryl Steinberg, learned more about how you could be effective in helping your community in all these different roles. And that's how I got here.
So I'm Rick Zbur. I never thought I'd actually run for office because when I was a kid, I thought I would do that. And when I came out as a gay man, thought, and this is back in the 1970s, that just wasn't a path for anyone. And so it was the HIV crisis that got me back into politics in the 1980s, really where I saw so many like scores and scores of people just dying. And that's what got me politically active again. I ran for office in 1996 in Long Beach and lost, and then really sort of put that aside, because when you lose a race, you basically say, okay, I'm going to do something else. So I got involved in the environmental movement and the LGBTQ movement. And it was my sister who about a year before she passed away, and I'm in my 60s now, and she basically said, you know, that she had had some regrets about things that she hadn't done in her life, and basically said, you know, Rick, you were supposed to do something in public service, so I hope you will decide to do that. And I sort of took stock of where I was and decided to run, even though I was in my 60s, and that's how I got here.
So for me, the seed was planted when I was a 15-year-old girl, not to run for state office, but to work in policy. And so I actually came to Sacramento through the Chicano Latino Youth Leadership Project in, oh my God, what year? 1998. And so that was the first moment in my life that I can point to that the seed was planted. And then after college, I did the fellowship, the Polanco Fellowship, because unfortunately at the time, through the Assembly Senate Fellowship, we didn't see the type of diversity in those programs. And so Senator Polanco had formed this leadership also program that was very similar to the Assembly and Senate fellowships. And so I had the opportunity to work for a senator back right after graduating from Berkeley. And I thought I was just going to do policy. And I enjoyed that. I actually went back to my community to work for Senator Michael Rubio as his district director. And I think it was just kind of all about timing for me. He ended up kind of abruptly leaving. I had to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And I enjoyed the policy space. And so I knew that there were so many challenges in the city of Fresno that I felt like I had a unique perspective. There were no women on the council, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. And so, you know, and the rest is really history. And I do want to say, I think redistricting, because if it wouldn't have been for redistricting, this new district that was drawn, the Assembly District 27, which includes Merced all the way to Fresno, wouldn't have given me the opportunity to run for this open seat, because I was nestled into Dr. Arambula's seat before. So, and yeah, and so I'm here, you know, full circle for me when it comes to politics.
Hello, everyone. So interesting enough, I never imagined running for office. It just happened. I wanted to become an attorney. I went to law school, passed the bar exam, and I was a practicing attorney. And so what happened is I got involved in my community. I became involved with the Kiwanis Club of Downey, which is an organization committed to helping youth. I became involved with Teen Court, with the Downey Chamber of Commerce, and with just many different organizations. And I was the type of person that said, yes, I'm willing to do this. Yes, I'm willing to do that. And so I was encouraged to run for city council in 2016 by our Assemblywoman, Cristina Garcia, who represented Downey at the time. And so she encouraged me to run because she saw that on city council, it was mostly men on the council. And so I ran for office, won, and then now that there was an open seat for the assembly, it was Supervisor Janice Hahn who then encouraged me to run. And so the reason I'm here is because of others who helped me be here and saw that this is something that I had a passion for, which in reality I do. I love service, I love helping others, and that's why I became an attorney. But never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined me being here. But now that I'm here, I'm excited to be here.
I guess we have to. Josh Hoover, new assembly member for District 7 here in Sacramento County. I've always had a passion for California politics and public policy. That led me out of college to get an internship through the UC Center program here in Sacramento in the state capitol. And I'm actually really excited today. We've brought Lawrence, who's our intern from the UC Center. So we're super excited to go full circle here. But I started that internship program, started working in the public policy space. And then as my kids started getting older and started getting into school, a couple seats in my school districts school board came available, I decided to run for that so that I could have a voice in the decision-making process. That was in 2018. Little did I know what was coming in 2020. I think if you had told school board members across the state that, COVID was on its way, I'm not sure they would have run in 2018, but it was a huge time for our community. And I was very, very thankful to be able to be a part of that process and be a decision maker during that time. And then also because of redistricting and some vacancies that were created, I was able to run for the assembly and it was not part of my plan necessarily, but we worked very hard. We won the race, and I'm very, very thankful to be here.
So some of you have worked for the legislature before. Most of you have at least interacted with the legislature in previous roles. I'm curious, now that you are on the other side, we've had a few months to settle in now, what have been the biggest unexpected challenges being in the California legislature? We can do open-ended, or we can start with Assemblymember Hoover and come back down, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, unexpected challenges. Well, first of all, I have to challenge the fact that Roger Niello is a rookie, because that's a little bit questionable. But he's my state senator, so I'll allow it. Unexpected challenges. I mean, I think that as someone who previously worked in the building, everyone kind of keeps telling me, oh, you totally know how this place works. And there are certainly things that has made easier, but it's very different on this side of, the role. You have a lot more responsibility. Everything falls on you. You're the final decision maker. And I think that, especially when you're representing your community and you're representing your constituents, that carries a lot more weight than when you're just working in the building for a member of the legislature. So I'm very, thankful to have been entrusted with that opportunity, but it certainly has been an unexpected challenge.
So one of the unexpected challenges for me is just being so far away from my district. So I had been involved in my community since before getting on city council. And so I was used to going to all the events. I was used to being very involved in my community. And so now being here in Sacramento, I feel a little homesick. I feel homesick from all the events and everything going on in the district and in my community. I miss my bed. I miss my parents. I miss my dog. I have a miniature schnauzer named Mr. Belvedere, so I miss him. So those have been some of the challenges for me.
For me, I will say in very short order, I had two big crises happen in my district. So experiencing challenges like right as I get to do the work. But the other, I think, main challenge that I didn't expect, because I had been here as a staffer over a decade and a half ago, was staffing challenges. And that's real. And it's so interesting because I remember before you couldn't get into the Capitol without volunteering, without having to know someone that knew someone. And so now to see the staffing challenges, that to me is kind of troubling, because I believe that it impacts the institution. And so that's an unexpected challenge that I've experienced even up to this point.
I would say for me, it's really sort of time management. I mean, realizing that I don't even have time to have a haircut, it's I really think that, part of our role as sort of new as rookies is, really taking meetings with the people we don't know, understanding, who has, expertise in all these areas. And so I take meetings with everyone who asked for them pretty much. And that basically means that my schedule is completely full here, and it's completely full on Fridays, and it's full on Saturday and Sundays. And I sat back and I think, okay, when am I going to see my kids? And when do I get a haircut? And when do I have a 99-year-old mother who lives with me. She's in hospice, and we have caregivers that take care of her through the 3 nights that I'm not there. And I try to get home at night, and it's just sort of juggling all of that, trying to see your kids, trying to, take care of your family, and even just do those basic things like getting a haircut is something that's, it's been something that I didn't realize that, we just had, that you were just going to be so tight on time.
Well, your hair looks great. looks great too, Roger. I didn't have any interactions really with the legislature, even though I'm a council member from Sacramento. Most of you that know me as like a laser focused city of Sacramento, hyper focused on the issues of this city. And while I do get to sleep in my own bed, and I don't see my kids as much either, but I have a little bit of homesickness too. I miss my mayor. I miss my city manager. I miss my friends at City Hall. And that's a little bit of a challenge. I didn't expect that because I only moved 3 blocks, right? But I was surprised also how much my city missed me. And I have some of my staff with me, they could tell you sometimes they're like, who are you texting? I'm like, just answering a question for the Parks Department really quick. And I guess I didn't see that coming. I probably just didn't think it all the way through. But when you haven't worked with the legislature before, I say this all the time, but I probably walked into the state capitol maybe a total of 7 times in my life before I walked onto the red carpet to be sworn in with my little daughter on my lap. And most of those times were to take Dr. Pan a birthday cake. So it wasn't like I was over there for, big, discussions or something. It was really more to celebrate. And I will tell you one thing that is, very heartfelt, I'm sure everyone would agree, is every time you step onto that floor, you can feel the power of everyone who stepped on the floor before you. And the desks in the Senate are the original desks. And the day they put my name on the side, I was like, wow, I can't believe my name is on the side of one of these desks on this red floor in this historic room. For the journey that I've had, or just, at the beginning of my adult life, I was a single mom on food stamps, living in low-income housing in this city, to holding a desk on the floor of that Senate is still a bit overwhelming to me.
I'll go back to my assembly experience because since I've done that, there's probably not a lot that's going to surprise me in the Senate. When people ask me, I say, well, so far so good, but check back with me in 6 months. I will have gone through a cycle of end of House of Origin deadline and the budget, which will be fun this year. But first of all, in terms of challenging, after you serve on the board of supervisors of a large urbanized county like Sacramento, the legislature is nowhere near as challenging. And it's great preparation for serving as a legislator, because we pass a bunch of laws that the state doesn't do anything, counties do it all, right? That may be an overstatement, but perhaps not a lot of an overstatement. But what did surprise me in my legislative experience initially was the absolutely hectic nature of floor sessions when you bump up against the House of Origin deadline and then the end of session deadline. My fellow rookies here haven't experienced that yet. Good luck with that. You are entertaining a bill sometimes every 5 minutes. And that's a little bit more challenging probably in the Senate, because in the Assembly, you press some buttons and you can actually not vote and wait on it and cast your vote at the end. Can't do that in the Senate, so that'll be interesting. But that I was just absolutely bewildered by that, and I decided that if I ever wrote a book about the experience, the title of the book would be "Shut Up and Vote."
Okay, looking forward to that. So, and Senator Niello, we're going to stick with you because, as it has been talked about regularly now, you are not really a rookie. You served in the Assembly. You're back in the Senate now. What has been the biggest change or difference that you've seen between your time then and your time now?
The hangover effect of the pandemic. Initially, all of our committee meetings received testimony via television, remote testimony. There was no reason for that, and I made several comments about that, and I was assured that we'd start having in-person testimony. And we have. And so that it's a much better experience, easier to understand, easier to interact with the witness when you have questions. And so that was a significant change from what I experienced before. The other thing that I'm anticipating is the budget process. I was vice chair of the budget when I was in the assembly, and I left with a huge budget problem that we solved for the moment then, which I thought was the end of my political career, but that's another story. Some of you probably know that story, but I come back to the legislature now as a senator, and I'm vice chair of the budget committee. And at the first committee meeting, John Laird, who's on the committee, was chair of the budget committee in the assembly. He and I got to know each other very well. He opined as to, with the coincidence of my departure then and arrival now, perhaps these budget deficits are my fault. So maybe so, but at least because of the pandemic, the budget process has been, shall we say, much less than transparent. I don't think that there's been a conference committee for a couple of years, and the process of settling the budget is compromised by that. The last couple of years, the budget has been pretty much put together by the two legislative leaders and the governor, and a budget comes out of that process for everybody to vote on the floor, up or down. And as I said, it was a product of the circumstances of the pandemic. And I hope that's the case. We will find out if that's the case as we go through the process this year. I've said on several occasions, we have to have a conference committee, not because I love them, I don't, but it brings the whole budget out into the open. And so I'm hoping to anticipate that will be better than it has been the last couple of years.
There are a couple bills we want to ask about. And for this, I want to start with Assemblymember Hoover because you are most recently a staff, and I'm very curious what your thoughts are on the bill to allow legislative staff to unionize, having recently been in that space.
Getting right into it. That is a great question. You know, I actually have a lot of thoughts on that legislation. I have a lot of thoughts on staffing in general. I do agree with my colleague, Assemblywoman McKinner, that staffing is a huge challenge. And I think, you know, we've already mentioned it here today. We are in a place where, you know, we lack a large pool of qualified staff where that did not used to be the case. And I think, you know, it is important that we're taking care of our staff. So that being said, you know, generally speaking, I have mixed emotions on the bill because I don't fully support it in concept. That being said, I also think that it's unfair that the legislature regularly places regulations and requirements on other industries or pushes unionization in other industries while not doing it to themselves. So I think there are some certain conversations that should happen around that topic. But in terms of the, you know, so I'll have to keep it open-ended for now. But I do want to point out that there are some significant pay disparities between Democratic and Republican staff. And that is something that I am very committed to working on as well. I think that Republican staff work very, very hard. We are not in the majority, but they work equally as hard. And so I think it's really important to keep that conversation going as well.
Assemblywoman Soria, you were also former staff. You mentioned staffing challenges. Just wondering if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, I think that we have to have a broader conversation, and I'm really interested in the outcomes, right? And is that piece of legislation really going to result in addressing the challenges that we have with staffing? I think the biggest challenge that we have is the small budget that we get as legislators, and that does not allow us to compensate our staff as they deserve. And, you know, if I would be given more money, and actually as a council member in the city of Fresno, we grew our budgets, our office budgets, so that we could address the, the salary challenges. I do believe that there's a significant disparity, and that's why we have to some degree a missing middle of, staff with experience that end up leaving because they will never move up in the scale just because of the numbers. And so, I want to really have a discussion. I also want to hear directly from my staff, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be impacted by this issue.
If anyone else wants to jump in on that, yeah.
So I support the bill. I think that our staffers not paid anywhere near close to what they should be paid. I mean, I came out of a nonprofit where we were not paying gold standard fees and really had a hard time even hiring the most junior people from Equality California to sort of come over to the staff. And I think my staff is incredibly, incredibly talented, but they could make so much more money that, doing other things in the private sector. And I think we're losing talented folks because of the lack of pay. And one of the tools to get the state there is this bill. Obviously, and the other thing is that taxpayer advocates put in our Constitution the limitations that result in us having these really small budgets. So we need to recognize that this isn't just the legislature. This was something that was done by taxpayer advocates. And we need to sort of force the conversation. I think this bill does it, but we need to be paying our staff more. It is the one thing I agree with you on is that we shouldn't be requiring the private sector and we should require the private sector to make sure that people have good paying jobs with good benefits, but then not pay our own staff in the same way.
Okay, moving on to our next topic, and we're going to start with you, Senator Ashby, because you sit on the committee that first heard this proposal on the governor's price gouging penalty on oil companies. Where, we saw a hearing play out. There are many perspectives on how that went. Where do you stand on this whole idea? And also, do you think a special session is necessary for this?
So the idea, or you tweeting me getting Starbucks? Which one of those things am I answering right now? Let's be clear.
Okay. No. Yes. Where do you on the penalty?
So, I was asked this a lot on the campaign trail too, because of the dynamics of the race. And I said then, and I still believe now, that it was a really good move of the governor to start a dialogue that is incredibly important. As you saw in the last 2 oversight hearings, the dialogue has ballooned into this massive, sort of hard to control thing that's all over the place. And you have folks focused in different areas, or some posturing defensively, some really aggressively pursuing outcomes. Here's the thing that matters to me as a new senator representing people in Sacramento, which is a very diverse community. Gas prices are too high and we deal with it too often. And so we have to do something that allows us to be accountable to the people who put us in the building around what we're doing to prevent that from happening again. I don't have the answer for you. And I don't think the governor is saying that he has the perfect answer either. In fact, I think he's been really open about, okay, well, if this isn't the right thing, then what are your suggestions? What are your ideas? I love the idea of all of the oversight hearings and tons of input, because there are some things that are becoming really obvious. For example, before I was on the Senate floor, I didn't really know that the refineries didn't coordinate when they shut down. And so one of the governor's ideas is, why don't we coordinate that? Because if 2 refineries are shut down at the same time, it drives up the cost because the other refineries don't put out enough for your supply and demand, simple supply and demand issue. So there's some things that have come to light that I think are going to be really making a big difference for people in the state of California, and some that'll be harder, more challenging to address, but I'm excited to have a seat at the table in those conversations, even if it requires me drinking lots of caffeine.
You need your caffeine.
I do.
I think I was jealous
That's
when
what was
you
happening.
had that delivery.
Well,
really.
next time we'll get to.
Okay, perfect. And I want to open this up to the new members, because the governor announced this proposal, this idea, and the special session intention before any of you were elected. And so you were really the wrench in potentially how this all plays out. So if anyone else would like to
I would
weigh in.
love to.
Okay.
Every time gas prices spike, there are calls to investigate the oil companies. Every time. An excess profits assessment has been tried at the federal level in the 70s, in European countries, and it has universally not worked. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about the incredible profitability of airlines right now. What they're experiencing is somewhat similar to what the oilies have, and that is their performance was dismal during the pandemic, and now people are out and traveling, and they are jammed. And I don't know about you if you tried to fly, but my wife and I took our family to Club Med in Mexico over Thanksgiving week. And while my wife and I both had to back out because we got COVID, the kids had a great time. But the point is, the airfare for the group was more than the room and board at the Club Med, which is not exactly a cheap place. So airfares have been extremely expensive. There's been some problems in service delivery in the airline industry, and I'm waiting for the governor to call for an excess profits tax on the airlines. It's no different. Why aren't we? Anytime prices seem to be high, I guess we should call for an excess profits tax. Now, I'm sure that doesn't make sense to you, and it doesn't make sense to me. And as I said, it has been tried. It doesn't work. I personally believe it was driven by politics on the governor's side, and I also get the firm sense that the legislative leaders don't appear to be chomping at the bit to try to accomplish this legislation.
I want to move on to our, oh,
I'll just be short. I think I applaud the governor for actually taking a look at this issue, because this is different than airfares. I mean, people actually have to drive to work, have to drive to pick up their kids from school. The high gas prices, it's a very different thing. It really impacts the quality of life for people in our communities. And I can tell you that, the proposal isn't finished. I think that legislative leaders are working with the governor and looking carefully at it. And I can tell you that I trust the governor more than I do the oil companies. And so I'm looking forward to what comes out of the process.
okay, I want to ask about the Capitol Annex. It's a total construction zone over there, more road closures every day. It's madness. So I'm just want to know, there's a lot of uncertainty about this. We haven't got a lot of information from legislative leaders. What have you all heard from legislative leaders about this project and its next steps and what's coming? And I'll open this to anybody who wants to answer. Does that mean you have no more information than we do?
No.
What wants to answer might have been the tricky part of your question.
Fair.
I'll take this. It's my district. I've heard from the folks. I'm used to local land use problems, and it's literally the same people that I worked with at the city who would come and talk about CEQA and all that stuff. They moved 3 blocks with me right over to the Capitol to keep talking. So I'll tell you what I know, but remember the title of the panel that you signed up for today, which is Meet the Rookie, of which I am actually truly one. So here's what I know. Listen, the Capitol was old and dark and really messed up, and they definitely needed to build new offices for the members. I don't think very many people dispute that, and maybe they did at the beginning, but now that piece seems to be pretty clear. We need to deal with that, and it's a hard and difficult, complex conversation. But the advocates in the region, they did sue. They did do a CEQA suit, and the CEQA suit was held up in part and not in other parts. So I think the annex will move forward just fine. I think there are questions around the part that has been proposed for the west steps. And at a minimum, what needs to happen is that there has to be a little bit more community input on that project. Sometimes community input, you guys, is just about noise or what will happen if you pound the ground too hard here, what happens to the other buildings. Sometimes it's about trees. Sometimes it's about egress. It could be a million things. And the reason you're not hearing about it is because the committee hasn't started back up again to talk about it. The lead of that committee will be Senator Laird. I am on it, and I have heard from a lot of people in Sacramento who have concerns about it. I think there'll be a further conversation around the project, but you'll also continue to see the construction moving forward, particularly on the annex component. That's probably the best I can do for you as a rookie.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Assemblymember Hoover, I know you've been a little bit vocal about this, so.
Just a little bit, but no, I think overall, you know, not to relitigate the entire project. I think it could have been done in a better way. I think, you know, I know the debate was always between demolition or rehabilitation. There is one area where no one disagrees, and that is that the existing annex needed significant upgrades. It is not ADA compliant. It is not really workable anymore as a space that, you know, it needs to be fixed. So I do agree that there's agreement on that. I think there was a more cost-effective approach that we could have taken that would have saved taxpayers a lot of money. And I know that there are some issues still that will continue to be addressed with the lawsuit. So I look forward to participating in those discussions. The thing that I am most focused on, I'm actually introducing legislation in the next week or so on the West Steps part of the project. That has gotten so little, when you actually bring it up to lobbyists or citizens or whoever you are talking to, nobody knows that the entire kind of existence of the current West Steps is going to be fundamentally changed forever. It will no longer be a place where people will be able to gather and petition their government. This is an iconic piece of the Capitol history that has been used by civil rights leaders, by taxpayer groups, by business groups, by community leaders for years and years and years, that is going away if we continue with that part of the project. So for me, that is really where I'm shifting my focus. I do agree with the senator that you know, the annex side of the project is moving along, and I think there may be tweaks here and there that will happen, but that is moving forward. But there is still time. No construction has started on the West Steps, and there is still time to reassess and have that discussion. So I look forward to doing that.
And I just have a quick reporter follow-up for you. Well, so permitting on the West Steps is ending. As of right now, they're not allowing permits for demonstrations beginning in June or July, I believe. So, I mean, how quickly could your legislation move on this to, yeah?
Well, I mean, that's kind of up to the legislature. But I look forward to working with my colleagues on that, because I truly believe that people just are unaware that this is happening. And I have actually spoken with CHP. This is, you know, once that project starts, it is going to be an absolute nightmare. It already is. It's going to be an absolute nightmare for at least 5 years around the Capitol for people to come and petition their government and make their voices heard. That's a huge problem. And so that's another thing we would alleviate by getting rid of that part of the project.
Okay. So at this point, I look to the audience we have time for some questions if anyone has some.
Good job, guys.
Oh, no questions? None? Don't be shy. Don't make me ask more questions. Let's do a quick lightning round. What's your favorite part about the Capitol that you did not expect to like?
Given where our offices are and where the chamber is, nothing.
We talk about the elevator.
I say something positive. I enjoy walking in every day to the Capitol, such a historical building, and being there on the assembly floor. Every day I sit there, I look up and I look around, and I'm just in awe of where I'm at.
And to sort of, I think, tag on to Assemblymember Pacheco and interpreting the question broadly, I mean, how much better a job could you have? It's something where you come in every day and you have the ability to try to make things better for people. I mean, really just listening to people across the spectrum, lots of ideas, things that you've never thought about before. It's like opens your world and you have such an ability to make change and really, improve the lives of people in our, that's like a super cool thing that I think about every day as I come into work.
I think, and I love to tell people this because I hope it makes you feel better about government. It is an adjustment to switch from being one of 9 to being one of 40 or one of 120, however you want to look at it. And I thought that might feel crowded, but it doesn't. And maybe it's because I'm in the Senate, but I feel in awe all the time when we have small group meetings or caucuses, or you come to committees and I hear the senators from across the state speak. The predominant thought I have in the back of my mind is, wow, the voters get it right most of the time. There are so many incredibly intelligent people trying to figure out what the best decisions could be for the most Californians in that building. And you should feel really proud of who they are, what their backgrounds are, what they look like, how diverse they are, and how well they work together and how hard they're fighting for you every day. I didn't expect it to be that strong, but it is.
I need to make an addendum. I interpreted the question to have to do with the physical experience.
No, I meant, your role working at the Capitol. We can talk about the swing space later, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not super pleased with the physical experience, but I would, as you can probably tell, I would echo what everybody said, and if I didn't think that, I wouldn't have come back.
Yeah, sorry. You go ahead.
I was just gonna similarly echo, I think for me, walking into the Capitol now as an elected official, because I did it so much as a staffer, but being able to go beyond, onto the green carpet, beyond that, the back row where only staff, can go up to, you can't really, that was like that's pretty amazing every single time I walk onto the floor. And it's just a reminder of the incredible responsibility that I have, and just how honored I feel that, the residents of Assembly District 27 picked me to be their voice.
By the way, going back to the staff discussion, we should start with the elevators. We should talk about those. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
A bipartisan issue.
A bipartisan support for that. But I definitely agree with my colleagues. Anyone that has a passion for public policy, the thought flashes through your head at some point in your life that how cool would it be to be a decision maker in the legislature or, in government. And most of the sane people choose not to pursue that path. But there's some of us that are crazy enough to run for office. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would actually be here. And so I couldn't agree more. It is just the biggest honor in the world. I love my community so much. I grew up in my community. To be able to come to this place and actually be their voice and represent them, I think, it's the greatest opportunity I'll ever have, for sure. Thanks.
Oh, perfect.
So for those of you who came from public advocacy before running for office and being in office, what's the best way for constituents to get in touch with you, have their voices heard, and kind of share their opinions with you so that you can, consider that for legislation or whatever else? And why is the answer form letters from public affairs offices?
I'll say just contact my office. I mean, literally, I am aware of every single email requesting time or requesting some of my time or requesting staff time and messages that come in. I mean, my staff, every single day, I sit down for an hour with every request that comes into the office, and we figure out a way of me meeting with folks. And I meet with people in my district. I'm always there on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we find a way of getting those in. So, I mean, all you have to do is email or call my office, and I mean, I will
make time for people.
So ditto for me on that. In addition to, so one of the things that I adopted as a council member, because even though I served in a city and people could maybe on any given Thursday show up on Thursday, there were a lot of folks that couldn't show up to a council meeting to express their concerns, to give me their input. And so my motto was, if you can't come to City Hall is going to come to you. And so I dedicated the 8 years doing over 40 town hall meetings in the time. I had a lot of community coffees. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do as an assembly member in my district. I have a very big district, so I think that it's going to be a lot more work, but my constituents deserve nothing less. When my constituents ask for a meeting up here, they are a priority. So I don't care if it's the biggest lobbyist in Sacramento, my constituents come first when it comes to meetings because they're the ones that sent me here to represent them. But again, I am open to anyone that wants to meet with us. And I too, actually, I do check my emails. So people are surprised when I respond to emails that come to my personal email, the assembly email, because I do read them.
And I'll go ahead and chime in as well. So I also served at the local level on city council. And so for me, it was important to do coffee events, to always meet with the residents. I would respond to residents via email, social media, from Facebook to Instagram. I always made it a point to respond. So when a resident reaches out to either my office, my district office, my capital office, or email, it could be my Gmail account or my assembly account, I always make it a point to respond because these are the people that got me elected. And so their concerns and their voices are always heard from me. And I've done that throughout my council experience, and I'm going to continue doing that on the assembly side. So residents reaching out to me, or the community reaching out to me, or business people in my community reaching out to me is always extremely important for me.
I think this question might be a little different for the Senate and also for Senator Niello and I, because we live in Sacramento. So two things. One, Senate districts are 1 million people. It's huge. And we probably both try to look at as many of those email and meeting requests as we can, but it's really a lot. And it is for them too, but the Senate districts are so large. And for some of our colleagues who, they span all the way from Sacramento to the Oregon border or the other way. And so it's really large geographically too for senators. The second thing is, I know there's a luxury that we get to sleep in our own beds, but like my kid's soccer coach is one of the lobbyists. Like everybody lives by us. We don't go grocery shopping without talking to the community and residents and everybody that they're meeting with only when they're here, and we're seeing at PTA night. So,
The email messages that come and the district office staff field those, they are frequently about sort of the same issues. There may be 5 or 6 issues that most people are writing about. And so I draft a response together with the district office, and so it is a form letter goes out, but they're all in the same issues, and it did come from me, but the wording is the same to everybody that asks the same question. If it's a one-off, they will show that to me, and we'll work up a response on the one-off. And I've met lots of times with individual members of my district that want to come in and talk with me. That doesn't happen very often, quite frankly, but it does happen. And my schedule, because I've been around here so long, if somebody contacts the office from my district, my scheduler can assume as easily that they know me and I know them or not. And so I do see those individual requests, but frankly, that really doesn't happen all that often. So we try to tailor it as much as possible. And Angelique is right. I go to the grocery store and it takes me a long time to get a loaf of bread.
We have, yeah.
All right.
Oh, go.
I was just gonna add on. So I agree with my colleagues. Everyone that writes to our office gets a response. My district team is amazing, and it's also amazing to be local because we get to go to more things. But what I would say is that accessibility piece is one thing that legislators control. And everyone can make a decision to be accessible, but it's also easy to hide if you would prefer to hide. And so I think, I'm very committed to being very accessible in my district. And I'm very excited, as I've mentioned before, to be here in the first place. So being able to do that, since everyone is here already, they can join Senator Niello and I next Friday, March 17th at Citrus Heights City Hall at 8:30 a.m. if you want to come to our first community coffee too. So I'll throw that out there.
Nice shameless plug. Okay, we have time for one more question. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hi, thank you. In addition to the O Street elevator, I'm wondering if you've identified other issues that seem ripe for bipartisan and bicameral cooperation and collaboration.
Like on policy issues? Oh, okay. Well, I see that there's an incredible opportunity, and I already have some support on a particular issue. You guys probably have been hearing that my hospital in Madera closed, and there are a number of hospitals that are right now experiencing significantly financial challenges. And I think that we have to work together to find multiple solutions to address the issues that are impacting hospitals to continue to have their doors open. So I do believe that issue has an incredible opportunity to bring folks together.
I think there's lots of issues that can be supported across multiple lines in that building. I'll share with you one so that you can be specific. The first bill that I put forward is SB 307. It makes college free for foster youth in California. If you are a former foster youth, you do the hard work it takes to get yourself to college, that I think tuition should be free. You should have your housing covered, your books, and it has bipartisan support. So I think there are many things that we can work on together if we talk about them.
I think one general area where I think Democrats and Republicans share the same objectives, and I think might be some areas where we can come out, is actually helping small businesses come out of the pandemic. I think we all understand that our small businesses are really the engines of our economies. It really is, is lifting up families. And I think the pandemic, we still have a lot of holdover from that. And I think that's one of the areas where Democrats and Republicans can work together.
And I want to chime in. So I thought the question was more about the building itself, but about policy issues. I actually have one bill. It was the first bill that I introduced that will have bipartisan support. It's Assembly Bill 77. It's a diacritical marks bill. What this bill would allow is for individuals to put an accent or an ñ on their names for their birth certificates, for death certificates, which is currently not allowed. And so there's a big difference, at least for the Latino community, between Munoz without the ñ and Muñoz when you add the ñ. And sometimes accents make a big difference. For instance, Nicholas versus Nicolás. So that's very important, and it will receive bipartisan support. So that's just one example.
I signed on this morning. So. No, I think honestly, there's a ton that we can work on together. And, we don't always agree with the necessary solution, but we've identified a lot of challenges in California that we all agree on. I've joined the California Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a group of equal amount of Republicans and Democrat legislators who are committed to solving these challenges together in a bipartisan fashion. And I definitely look forward to working with all of my colleagues. And I think a lot of our new legislators, our rookies, are very committed to that as well. So I'm excited for what's to come.
Also a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus as well.
Well, thank you all. Oh. Yes, we know. Okay, well, thank you all so much for doing this.